Hello and welcome to Big Sky Bits. I'm your host Colby, and today we're going to get started. I had a little interesting conversation today at my gym, and it basically boiled down to a few individuals too that believed Bitcoin had no intrinsic value, and that's where today's discussion is going to really center is what is the intrinsic value of Bitcoin and what does it do for humanity that no other product does. But before we get into that, let's go over the price and look at where we've been today. Bitcoin's price has dropped down to, right now we're at 98,000. We were a little lower at 97 some. Here we go again, 97 some. But if we look at the 5-day chart, that represents basically a $10,000 drop in about 2 days-ish. $10,000 drop usually is met, as we see, by a $10,000 raise, gradual raise. This rejection or correction down to the downside is more than overdue. We all knew this was coming. Whether or not you made a play on it, that's up to you. Some people like to swing trade, some people don't. Again, it's all personal preference. But if we look at the lower lows of most of this upward trend coming in from early November, we can see we're just still making lower highs. As long as we reverse here and don't really get below, I don't know, 94,000. Yeah, 94-ish. As long as we stay above 95, 96, I think we're more than healthy. And let's see if we do reverse here. We would want to see a reversal and probably shoot back up to about 104, 103. That would be nice. And we'll just see where this leads us to. But overall, I'm not too much worried about price. This correction was overdue, as we said, and here we are. Let's also move on quickly and just check out the meme pool. It looks like prices are going up a little bit as probably more and more people are trying. Our orders are getting filled right below 100,000. I'm not quite sure. But the meme pool is still a little bit higher than we've traditionally set this year. Nothing astronomical, but decently high. And now let's get into the intrinsic value of Bitcoin. And what does an intrinsic value mean? And as I was looking it up, I remembered an old Reddit quote and I tried to find it and I was able to. This guy was talking about what is intrinsic value, and this quote sums it up great. A glass of water is worth nothing to a drowning man. If he's dying of thirst in the desert, it's probably worth his life savings. All value is subjective. The value of anything is solely determined by human wants and needs. And this is true. And where I messed up in this conversation earlier today at the gym was these people wanted to start a discussion on the lack of value, and I should have been more like, okay, and just moved on. I didn't need to engage in this discussion. These people's minds have long been made up, and they'll get into Bitcoin when they deserve to get into Bitcoin, and that's fine. Everyone has that right. To me, the intrinsic value, and I come from someone who didn't get into it just for the investing, and that's where they came into it. They thought of it only as a speculative investment, and people are using it to get rich. One even goes, I've invested in it and made money, and good on him. But to invest in something without really knowing the underlying technology seems odd to me, but I approach investing in a different way. To each their own. I'm not here to try to sway anyone's mind, just trying to offer perspectives on what I believe can be a transformative technology for the world. So, getting to what is intrinsic value. I got into Bitcoin because back when I was younger, I did a lot of online gambling. Not super successfully, but it was a great pastime and a great way for me to have something to do. I enjoyed it. I made a little money off it, but nothing significant. The government came away and took away our rights to online gambling. And if you look at the situation, it appeared as it was mainly a power grab from the US government wanting to say, hey, we're going to allow our gambling interests within the states to make money so we can tax them, which I understand, but they didn't offer outlets to other states. Only a few states were able to adopt this. So Bitcoin became a way for many people to gamble online. Whether that's good or bad, that's a whole separate discussion. You also saw that Bitcoin was used in its early days for the Silk Road. Now, many people bought horrible drugs, did horrible things. There was a lot of sketchy stuff, but there were also stories of people who couldn't get insulin or different drugs that they needed to help themselves that aren't necessarily horrible or bad drugs, as we'd like to say. Some people used it for good reasons and had different reasons as to why they couldn't get that therapy or drug in their country or state. And Bitcoin showed its usefulness to circumvent or get around some government regulations. Now, many people understand that the Bitcoin public ledger is very transparent, but there's ways to obfuscate, or that's a hard word, hide your identity. And I think that's a useful tool. I don't think most humans are out there to do bad. In fact, I believe human beings are good. And my argument for why we're good is we would not have got to this situation if the majority of humans were evil, or even a large minority. The vast majority of humans are good humans. And when it comes to intrinsic value, it's what does that product or item give to a society that only that product can do, or it has a value because of its uniqueness. And I think that is what Bitcoin is. It has intrinsic value because it's become the largest worldwide ledger, because people have put their heart and souls into it. The work, the labor of miners, of node operators, this all contributes to a product that has vast intrinsic value. It is the incentive system to create the next financial system, the next internet, the next way we look at distributing information. And I believe the decentralized nature is the most important part of Bitcoin that's often overlooked, that our current structures are so centralized that they themselves create a risk by their centralized nature. Another thing to look at is just how money is valued. Money doesn't necessarily have to have a useful component other than holding value, being able to not be controlled by one entity or something. And Saifedean gets into this on a CNBC discussion, and I'd just like to play this quick clip because he summarizes well how hard money is where people end up putting their time and value. Because money is a representation, or should be a representation, of our energy spent, the work, the labor, the cumulative effects of energy. So within a society, let's take a look at this video.
Wasn't everybody thinks, and that's the misunderstanding of what money is. It's not because you can make a nice ring out of it. There's characteristics of why gold for 4,000 years has been used to represent value, but it has nothing to do with what it's used for.
No, it stores value well because it's very difficult to increase the supply of gold. It's very difficult to increase the supply of gold substantially. Every year, the supply of gold goes up at only around 1.5% to 2%. And so that means that people who hold it as money end up doing very well for themselves, and people who hold other things don't do well. And that is...
So, and you can see, like, as Saifedean expressed, the reason gold was so popular is because the slow rate at which it was discovered, and humans really couldn't push It really became hard to push a narrative of just creating money out of thin air. Gold had a backing that underlied the money and gave support. Now, as we've seen time and time again, governments will undermine that. They'll undermine the value of gold by depleting its value by making it not as pure, adding copper, adding different metals to it. And we've seen this time and time again where they've diluted money in an attempt to essentially steal money from the populace. And we see that with fiat money. And to these people who don't understand the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, the intrinsic value is the network effect. It is the immutability of the blockchain. The fact that the ledger, we can go back and see things. The fact that you can avoid censorship or obfuscate or hide your identity of where that may have come from. These are all positives. And I understand people can use many aspects of any technology to do bad things. And that's why, as a society, it's our goal to watch out for those, have enforcement in place, but you don't destroy the highway because a few people got in car wrecks. You don't go after guns because people used it incorrectly. What we have to do is try to create a better society where the incentives align with what we want as a society. And in the long game, as the dollar loses its dominance, as we're seeing other countries that are skeptical about the way we manipulate money here in the United States. And all countries manipulate money, but being the global currency or the one many judge things against, we have undue power that creates like a honeypot for politicians, money printers to abuse it, because there's very few ramifications if they print money, lose money. And there's not this transparency in the government like there is in Bitcoin. And I believe Bitcoin can bring this technology to our government. Whether the government sees it the same way or just wants to hold it out as a reserve, I could care less. The adoption is happening. If people think it's just money go up number and don't quite understanding the underlying technology, that's fine. And I need to get better at saying that's fine, you believe what you will. But I believe our system will evolve. And sure, Bitcoin, as it becomes more dominant, it's not going to solve issues and inequality between me and you and uber rich and the uber poor. This isn't going to create any sense of that stability. What it will do is over time, and this could be hundreds of years, over time, what it does is create a more fair system where money will equal effort and money will get spent. Right now, we're in the stage where people are able to abuse fiat money to acquire more Bitcoin, as Michael Saylor's pointed out. But that won't always be the case. And one day, it will be very hard to continually stack sats. And I think that day is quickly approaching. And I wish everyone the best luck. I'm hoping I can learn how to convey my convictions towards Bitcoin and what I think it can do for humanity, and that price is just a small component of what will be going on in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone. Please like and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you.